Good morning to you, and thank you so much for keeping it NBS Television. Journalists always have stories all throughout, from beginning to the end. And of course, I can't wait to be delving into the conversations of the day with my panel right here. Full panel, it is as is right now. But of course, the week has been all about the anti-graft protest. First of all, they were planned, and there was a lot of circulation in terms of the artwork on social media. And police came out and said, do not dare stay on the streets. So many, political figures came through. The Minister of ICT and National Guidance said, Kenya is not Uganda. Is not Kenya, and it was very evident that police was going to do anything and everything to be able to foil this. While I was speaking to Mr. Obaldo, who is the Chief Political Commissar of the Uganda Police Force, he said, well, we've received intelligence that it's more than just the protests. And when we asked the leadership, and a few people came through 3 days to the protest, we asked them how many people you're going to have. They didn't know which number. We asked if there is property destroyed, will you be able to pay? They said they couldn't be able to pay. And also police said then we cannot be able to allow you to. They wrote back to the group that alleged to be, fronting or the leaders or whatever it was. And it was heavy deployment. I'll get you back those pictures. My producer will get back those pictures for those probably who've not paid attention to the story. It was heavy police deployment on Tuesday, and it was very, very clear that whoever would try to come on the streets would definitely be arrested. And some arrests were made of those bold Ugandans who decided no matter the deployment, we're going to come on the streets. And yesterday, the president released information on his X handle, and he said there were two particular elements. One is that they were funded by foreign agents. Number two, they were planning bad things, bad manners, basically, on the street. I want to hear from my panel right now about what they thought about this protest. Did we even expect that this protest would actually be coming out after the president made his stance? And that was on Saturday about the protest. Let me introduce to you my great panel. I do have Mr. Richard Baguma, media trainer, a scholar, and I can gladly say veteran journalist, right? Good morning to you, Richard.
As always, I thank God.
Is he still a journalist?
I thank God
Once
for
a journalist,
being here.
always one.
It looks like the trouble has started in the first few seconds. Good morning. I thank God for being here. I thank the viewers for watching us. Some people warned me last night that they are going to be watching keenly. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But it's nice to be here, and the fireworks has already started even before the greeting.
A pleasure having you, and thank you for your time. I do have Dr. Gerald Walulia, who is a journalist, but also decided that he will not just do journalism. He will go to train more journalists to come through, and he is definitely a lecturer at Makerere University. So the journalists who are there, I have your lecturer right here in case he comes to class late today. Good morning to you, Doctor.
Good morning to you, Mildred, and good morning to you, dear viewers.
A pleasure having you on the Media Roundtable.
Thank you.
Peter Chivazo used to sit in this corner. No, it was the other corner on the other side. Issues at hand. But yeah, he's still a journalist. Once one, always one. I don't know. Would you still say you're still a journalist?
I am.
Yeah,
active.
You are actually active.
I am
yeah,
active.
Radio Simba.
But
Definitely.
what does active mean? As an activist?
No, as a journalist.
Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mildred, and good morning, viewers. Happy to be here. A terrible morning to be seated in with Richard.
You've started the fireworks on each other. And of course, I'm also seated with the CEO of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism. Are you still active? But once a journalist story is one, yes, I do. I see you do a lot of investigative stories. Solomon Serwanja. He always sits close to this chair so that just in case things don't go right, he will just switch and come back to his seat. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mildred. Thank you for having me, and you're doing a good job with the show. So it's in your able hands. I don't have any doubt that you... I don't know if you'll give me a chance to sit in that again.
I will talk to Mr. Fad, my producer, to see if we can have an exchange.
So it's good to be back on this show that I love so much.
And I would like to start with you, by the way. You covered. No, wait a minute. I am the moderator of the show.
I like that.
when you have Peter
I am
Chiwazo,
the
when you have
moderator.
Baguma, when you have
Allow me remind
Gerard.
you, sir, I am the moderator of the show, and I will do it my way. But you covered the protests, and I want to, because all of them covered the protests on their phones and not from their offices, but you were actually on ground. What did you see? And in any case, did you expect that with such warnings that had happened, such a protest would actually be able to manifest?
So firstly, Mildred, I need to really honor the young people of this country who have said enough is enough, who have mobilized and made it clear that the protests were partyless. It wasn't about politics, it wasn't about religion, it wasn't about anything. It was just them standing up against corruption, against abuse of power. Young people mobilized. I've had an opportunity of hosting different Twitter spaces. In fact, I hosted one that had over 210,000 people that attended that Twitter space. From, you know, you had young people speaking passionately about the issues that are affecting them. And on one of the spaces, I had Colonel Edith Nakalema. Firstly, of course, some young people thought it was unfair for me to bring Edith Nakalema, but eventually they poured out. And you would hear them saying that this government is out of touch with reality, with what's happening with young people. And when they see, when you have university students who have graduated with their bachelor's degrees, but they're struggling to find jobs, and they hear that the speaker and the deputy speaker drive cars of 2.6 billion shillings, and they hear that the speaker, they bought, you know, a generator of 500 million shillings to our private house, and they hear that we used about 500 million shillings to do laser fencing for the speaker's private house in Bukedia from a taxpayer. Young people are starting small businesses, and the next day URA comes knocking and closes their businesses, and they can't afford to raise this revenue, and they close their businesses, and the money perhaps they collect from taxpayers is actually given and swindled just like that. There's a general outrage from young people, and this wasn't even about politics. And many of them, one of them said, you know, they have lost their mothers and their parents because they can't afford perhaps treatment, they can't take them to India. They sort of, like, that ability for them to mobilize and say, look, enough is enough to politicians. We are not political. We are not anything. We deserve to be heard in the entire protest.
And then they're met with a, don't try this at home.
And you see, that's really what was annoying, because constitutionally, when people, we have a right as Ugandans to protest against anything that we feel. Yeah. And the law does not require us to ask, to actually seek permission, but to rather inform.
Notify.
Yes, notify. And it was a peaceful protest.
But a notification comes with a response, though.
You'd hear, I mean, and I notify you, it doesn't mean that you should give me permission. You'd hear that young people had organized to say, do not be violent, do not carry knives, do not, just come together with placards and then move in. And I was there on the front line. I covered them. They came holding each other, you know, chanting Anita should resign, holding placards against corruption. They did not beat anyone.
Is Anita or the speaker the epitome of corruption?
Well, I don't know about that.
It was much more than that.
At least from the information they collect, because there's evidence to that speaks about these things. I mean, during the parliamentary exhibitions, there was overwhelming evidence that was littered all over the internet. And the citizens now are aware about what happens within the confines of parliament. And against that, I saw these young people coming together. And I really appreciate them. I celebrate them, because even when they knew that they would be arrested.
I like that vehicle.
Yeah. even when they knew, even when these young people knew that they would be arrested, even when they knew that they would be arrested, but they pressed on and said, look, enough is enough, and we need to stand up for what we believe. I
will be coming to you to read into the president's statement especially, but at this point, let me get to Peter Chiwazo.
I was still enjoying the listening.
No, it's okay. You can break it now. What did you think about the protests? And with all the warnings, with all the deployment that was seen, because earlier on we were covering the deployment, and it was very clear police was stunned that nothing would have to come through with anything looking like a protest on here. First of all, the mobilization that did come through, did you envisage that we would see this from online coming onto the streets anyway?
You see, we are living in a borderless world. The borders collapsed long ago. The young people are looking at the world. Is it Bangladesh that the protests are pushing and pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries? We've had Nairobi next door. And I'm not sure that the young person in Kampala is any different from the one in Nairobi. So that we didn't expect the protests would be a lie. Even if for purely a trend, they would happen. Even if for purely a trend. But beyond that, they had reason to protest.
Yeah.
They had reason to protest. Actually, my expectation was the Ugandan young people, the Ugandan youth, are a lot more timid and comfortable than what turned out. I didn't expect the Ugandan youth to be out there. That's the truth.
Even with the
I
diplomacy.
expect them to be a lot more keyboard soldiers, Rolex guys, but I'm impressed by the few of them that turned out. That, for me, two things. We are faceless. We are leaderless. That's why I was enjoying listening to Solomon here. And Solomon actually says they are not faceless. They exist. I followed his space. I was one of the 200,000 on his space. I just decided to, let me go in here and get the feel. 200,000 people in a single space. If it is a TV audience, you're doing superb. This guy should be patting himself on the shoulders and saying, well, I'm bigger than TVs in this country. I'm bigger than newspapers. I was talking about circulation of newspapers, and I'm not going to talk those numbers on this show. So I'm thinking, these young men, these young women, who is mobilizing them? If they can mobilize themselves and you have 200,000 of them in one space, if I am on the other side of the state, I should be very worried.
Sure.
The propaganda machine of the state did not pull it off. Because the propaganda machine of the state said they have been mobilized. Someone has eaten their money. That was a good line. Whoever was spinning that wanted to spin the line and say, please don't go. Kivazo was paid money to deliver money to you,
And
and
here
he's
you are.
eaten your money. So don't get there. That they didn't get exactly right. In terms of success, if you expected Nairobi, we did very shabby in Kampala. If you expected the demos to be at, and mark, they are demonstrations, they are not riots. If you expected them to be at Nairobi level, they did very poorly. But for me, for the state, there are a cost that is heavy in public relations. Yoweri Museveni wants to project himself as a grandfather, as a father to these children. You have gotten him in a point of bother where he is deploying mambas against his grandchildren.
Because it says there were wrong elements. We'll delve into that later.
I don't know whether they are wrong elements. Even when they are wrong elements and they are your children in the house, do you draw a panga? Do you draw a spear? But the young people got General Museveni, their grandfather, Jaja, to bring mambas against them.
Okay.
For that, they can go home and sleep. They should be very happy with what the point of bother they've pushed
reaction.
the state into. I want for once to give credit to the police especially. Okay, except for what I've seen my friend Nicholas Opio post. But on the face of it, you had a police force arresting people that was not the brutal, the boot on the neck, usual. At least I haven't seen those pictures. It's been a while since I covered a street riot. This time round, they were not there. I feel sorry for my brother Kituma Rusoke because you're thrown in the midst of it straight away. But that didn't happen immediately. But in terms of cost, let no one tell you that this hasn't taken away anything from the state. How much does it cost this state to keep that garrison of soldiers, of police, patrolling the whole of Kampala? Even if these youth are 50 and they achieve that for 6 months, believe you me, there's going to be a hit on this economy.
Okay.
There's going to be a hit on our resources. And then for Parliament, we've yapped. Readers of Samuel Rubaraza Karujire will remember his roots of instability in Uganda. He variously takes us to that point when Obote put the army around Parliament and delivered a constitution. You have a Parliament seated in a garrison, surrounded. They can't park. Parliament Avenue was closed. The road from Garden City coming up was closed. Behind Parliament, the whole city was closed. Members of Parliament would walk from Kingdom Kampala or Kingless Kampala and walk to Parliament, and they are comfortable. And then tomorrow they will talk about Obote surrounding Parliament. They are surrounded, they are arrested, they are prisoners themselves, and they are seated in that house. Prisoners of what? Of self-inflicted pain.
And they were asking to have an anti-graft conversation on the floor, but that's a conversation for later. Dr. Gerald, is this what we expected with the continued, disregard to what is happening in the public space? The president himself, he is the first person who promised to draw out a sword of blood against the corrupt. And here are young people who are also saying, enough is enough, we're coming to. Come through, we're joining you in this fight.
I think the last time I was here, we were discussing the State of the Nation address, where he was specifically talking about corruption. And as we said that time that we don't believe what he's saying, and I think he has failed the first test. Because when thieves attack you and you raise an alarm, and then neighbors come to rescue you from these thieves, you don't want to seem like you are part of the thieves. So the president raised an alarm and invited the public to join him in the fight against corruption. And here are the good Samaritans who endure the persecution and go on the streets to try and join the president in the fight against corruption. He didn't only disappear because he should probably have joined them on the streets, but
his expert says he would
have if they didn't have wrong elements.
He sent forces to disperse them and arrest them and persecute them. So I think the president failed his own test where he rallied the Ugandans to come and join him to fight corruption. I think I was one of those people who thought probably on the site of the deployment, probably no one is going to show up. But I was surprised that there were a few young people who braved this heavy deployment to come and protest as they had promised. And I think I want to, like Solomon said, to salute them. I think they have done what our generation failed to do, because these things of corruption that we are talking about are not new. They have been with us for quite so many years. But for most of us who have grown through this government, I think we didn't take trouble to do what these young people are trying to do. I saw one of my students being arrested, the former guild president, and Kibazo said police wasn't as brutal, but probably
of the pictures I have
of the
seen,
pictures,
yes.
yeah. But I still think that there was some excessive force in the way they arrested some of these people, but also you might also be in the mind of some of these police people that the kind of people they were arresting are their own children, look like their own children. And it is possible that if they asked their children at home, they would have loved to join these protests. And I think another thing, unique thing I saw about these protests was that we saw people who rarely protest, educated young people. They are not border borders. They are people who have basically been to school. There are probably some who have tried to go to Abu Dhabi to look for work and they have failed. So they have felt the pain of a dysfunctional state. And that's why they are, I think, forced to come out. And I think even when they were suppressed, this is not going to be the last protest. I am sure they will keep trying and trying. And I think they did it well, that they made sure that this is not something led by any political party or religious denomination. And that's what makes such a movement successful, because you don't want people to start giving you names. And I am surprised that the president says that they have foreign funders.
Are you surprised?
Does it cost anything to a lot of money to buy Manila and
let's use the right words. Are you surprised? Are you disappointed? Didn't you expect that statement?
No, I think I thought he could do better than that this time, because at least you don't see any sign of money. To write these messages, you don't need money. To send out a message costs so little. So where is the money? I mean, I think when people are used to splashing money, even for things that don't cost money, they start to imagine that even other people are using the same methods.
Okay.
We don't see the money in these protests.
All right, thank you very much. Richard is very silent and just listening so keenly. What's your own view of what you expected of the Tuesday outcome after several warnings, a presidential address that was very clear and said, do not stay on the streets. We can do this in a totally different way.
First of all, I would like to credit President Museveni for realizing that he needs to take the initiative and be the anti-corruption crusader. I think this is usually him. He sees the direction and he seeks to lead the direction. Something that I think Raila Odinga does quite a bit. So he says, I am going to fight corruption, I am going to crash, I am the one. If you want to fight corruption, come be with me.
I'm the czar of corruption.
Yeah. So, and then he leaves some people to pay a price. Some people get thrown in and, publicize around it. So I want to credit him that this corruption thing, you eventually see that it keeps, everyone keeps telling you, you are IGG, what it is, but when I chase, they end up somewhere. Yeah. And so that's one. The second thing is for me, and this is the continued disappointment I get with my elite colleagues. The targeting, the inability to target correctly, and that we take the floor. You see, the fight to bring down Parliament on its knees, in my view, and I've said on this platform and other platforms I appear on, was not a public pushed agenda. No. It is the executive pushed agenda. The Parliament must be on its knees. It must pass the budget as is, and it has proved. And I come say these things, I seem like I am a little bit off. It must pass the budget as is. There are constitutional amendments that are going to come relating to 2026 and beyond. They must be passed as is. So you hammer it. Now, taking advantage of sentiment, of existing sentiment, to hammer and get your way through is a classic approach, I think, not just at leadership level, but even at personal level. exploit the sentiment of the other one to hammer your also opponent, and they think they are hammering their opponent. And when you say these things, oh. But let's come to the specifics of this action. I don't know. There is a word called virginity. And I think for many people, in many people's heads, it's the epitome of innocence. Yes. Now, for our children who go to good schools, who go to international school, who graduate and private tuition, I think their virginity has been broken. In terms of saying we have to conquer our fear, and you see, it's in Nyankore we call it it's a catch-22. This is the country in which you're going to be living. You don't have another one. You grow, after a bachelor's or whatever diploma, you realize that the way things have been happening for the last 4 so decades, or even more, 6 decades, I mean, it doesn't start with this, 86. That if you do not step in, things are only going to be worse for you. So just think about a young Yoweri Museveni saying, this is enough, I am getting guns, we are, I don't know, 33 or whatever, with 27 guns, we are facing, I don't know, 40,000 soldiers. You have to relate these two.
He's such a motivation. These young people.
You have to relate these two. He doesn't have to be a motivation for anything. When you are on the wall, you are on the wall. It is just simple.
Yeah.
You
just need to push
You
more.
just push back, yes. So we have to see this in that. Now, if there are any external forces, I would be surprised if they were not. If there are any external forces also taking advantage, is, in my view, the same way the executive took advantage and is weakening Parliament. It's the same. I don't see the difference. You see, for anyone to come and tell me that that corruption happens in Parliament, Mildred, real corruption happens in the executive, not Parliament. Parliament takes how much money? Really? Really? Parliament. Which project? Tell me which project Parliament supervises. One. Where billions have been siphoned. One. So it's this inability to put in proper, when you have a gun and you it's that inability to focus that then we keep saying Parliament. However, the push towards Parliament, in fact, is not a push towards Parliament. It's a push to the executive. Because who is deploying?
But
it's not Parliament. It's not Parliament.
It's not Parliament. It's coming from the executive to the Parliament.
Yes, but
then
you see,
how does it push back?
Absolutely, it goes wrong.
Boomerang.
You start it and it goes wrong. That is why you seek to be its leader.
And with that, we'll take a very short commercial break. And when we do return, we'll delve deeper into the president's statement, where he says they should have talked to Kano Edith Nakalema the other day. She organized us. But I kept saying, was that a march? Was it a protest or demonstration?
But she has already talked to them, to the leaders. Anyway.
Let's get back. We'll be right here.
But she has talked to the leaders.
All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for keeping it NBS Television. It is the Morning Breeze, your most authoritative morning current affairs show, and this is the Media Roundtable. Fridays, it's a conversation about the week's major stories through the lens of senior journalists, and I'm still with Solomon Seranja, Peter Kivazo, Dr. Gerald Waluria, and I do have Richard Baguma still here with me. Peter, I want to start with you. What do you read into the president's statement where he says, number one, they were being funded, but number two, they were planning bad things, bad manners. And he said those would actually be revealed during the trials.
Actually, bad is appearing like 4 times.
Exactly. Very, very bad things. And these would be identified during the trial.
Mildred, I want to give Mr. Museveni the benefit of the doubt and blame someone else.
Who are you
and
blaming?
say he's being fed on the wrong intelligence. He's being fed with the wrong numbers.
It's a kind of intelligence. The police chief political commissar, while I was speaking to me, said, well, if they were innocent, yes. I think he was speaking like the president was on X, but that was earlier. On Tuesday, he said, we've received the intelligence, and it's a totally different thing.
Actually, if you read the president's statement, he says this was intelligence-led. Even the police that arrested these children and charged them with the nonsensical, idle, and disorderly were not informed. Now, I'll flip back just a while back, and Richard here helped me get numbers. The president the other day came to address the nation, and he talked about our milk production. And I have a rabid friend who is also Richard's friend. Very dangerous. The moment the president talked about the liters of milk that we produce every day, this gentleman said the whole of Chiruhura would be a lake of milk. And if they are pouring all that milk, it would be a stench that is unbearable. So he did the numbers and said, this would imply we have 140 million cattle.
Captive cattle.
That are milkable. And each of them would be giving us, was it 40 liters or 20 liters a day? And he said, do we have that? Immediately I said, no, the technocrats are giving the president wrong data. And then Baguma came in to rescue and said, no, they added a zero. At the end, he was sanitizing it. So I want to believe that the same people gave the president wrong information. The president needs to flip and talk to his children. Mildred, another story. Someone will cane me for saying this. When they shut off the internet during the last election, do you know why we got back? It had nothing to do with you and I.
The elections are done.
No, forget about it. One of the young people that has access to His Excellency went and presented his phone and said, Judge, this thing is not working. They've switched off the internet. And the president did not look at the rest, said, but this young man, why are you making this one suffer? So he called someone and said, can't you help this one get back their internet? Because they are trained not to annoy His Excellency, they said, Jambasa, let's see. He disappeared. The young man came back. Jaja, it is not back. So he called someone else. And they said, but, so he chased them and called the people responsible. They said, but you see, if we switch on, even the others
will be back. It won't only be him.
He says, watch. You put them back. We are dealing with a generation whose demands are not your demands, my friend. They are not looking for posho and beans. This generation has not been served 2 beans like I was in school. For us, they served us a little soup and 3 beans, and life was normal. Their demands are different. Their exposure to the world is different. The president either needs to lift himself and arrive at the table where they are at and check out these people that are feeding him, or he's bound for doom.
But the president himself doesn't live in heaven. He lives here and sees whatever goes on.
The president is my father in that age. I am telling you, when I sit with my children in the living room, the things they know, the amount of world they can work around is different from mine. The president needs to look in the eyes of these little children that are demonstrating. I call them children.
But I don't think the kind that are demonstrating are in the circle or the near vicinity of the president. It's a totally different kind of children of that age with him.
No. Mildred, these demonstrations were not for the riffraff.
Sure.
They are not the November demonstrations when Kyagulanyi was arrested. They are not the demonstrations of, I don't remember, 2016, 2015, when Besigye was arrested. They are not the Kabaka riots. These have, look at those pictures. Listen to the language they are speaking, the demonstrators. They are not your common John, and that is where Richard is saying they've broken a virginity. You've brought people that you didn't expect. My worry is for the state. If it continues ignoring them, they are going to bludgeon. Now, you expected them to stop on Tuesday. I expected with the demo of force, with the pouring out or show of power, metal, iron, that these kids would go back. Boom. They were not at rugby club yesterday. They were on the streets again. They are not many, but a few of them came. Now their colleagues are in prison. They are going to be charged. They are going to come and demand for the release of their colleagues. So it's not game up.
Okay.
The president says they were funded. Now, believe you me, if I am a political player, if I am Kyagulanyi, if I am Besigye, if I am their funders, I would take advantage of this. It is such a beautiful cause to take advantage of. It is a cause that people can identify with. It is a cause that someone should fund. It is a cause that you, Mildred, should give water to. If someone is asking questions about corruption, all of us have been hit. And this is going to grow. In Kenya, it started with the finance bill. It ended up with corruption. It ended up with the look of cabinet. Now we are saying, Ruto aende. Ruto must go. And it can bludgeon. I love the smart of the president. The president is saying, wait a minute, I can steal this thunder and be the chief demonstrator.
Against
I would
corruption.
love him to be in his sneakers
He said
on
only,
Kampala Road holding a placard.
if those two elements were not
No,
passed,
let him come
he
on
would be.
board holding the placard.
He would
I'll
be.
be the photographer.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Gerald, what do you read into the president's statement? You already said you are disappointed that he said that, but he says those two elements actually made it impossible for even the security to allow such a noble cause to go ahead.
I think the president...
So the cause was hijacked in the president's literal meaning.
The president finds himself in a very weird position where you have to arrest your own grandchildren, the ones that you regularly refer to as Vazukulu.
Deploy members against them.
Deploy members against them for doing what you ask them to do. I
Fight
think
against corruption.
Fight against corruption. So I think the president has no commitment to fight corruption, because if he did, his government would not stand, like we said last time. But also, the president is currently not in touch with what is going on in the lives of many ordinary Ugandans. That's why you see him say the things that he says. He doesn't know what it means to spend and sell your land to send a child to school, and at the end of it all, the child can't find employment. So that's why he thinks that everything that is going to be done must be funded by a foreign agent, is a bad thing. First of all, anything that is not led by the president is a bad thing, if you have realized from his past engagements. That's why if a president was a football player, you have to make sure that you pass the ball to him so that he's the one who scores. As long as he's not the one who hits the net, you are doing a bad thing. So, but
he's always scored every time he plays football. I never realized it's choreographed.
Yes, it has to be planned. You must pass the ball to him. So now that he's not the one leading the march against corruption, the last time he tried, I saw it as a singing of praise for corruption. I didn't see it as a march against corruption. So I think he needs to learn from what the young people are doing and support them instead of arresting them. People out there have pains that they have gone through over the years as a result of corruption. And as we are saying, although our current focus is on parliament, the real corruption is happening in government. because that's where the big money is. Parliament only takes a small fraction of the national budget. We are not saying that Parliament is not corrupt. We all know at this point that there is a lot of corruption going on in Parliament, but this is just a replica of what is going on in all other government agencies. I think all of you have friends who work in these agencies, and you know the kind of things they do. If the president was interested in any information leading to catching the corrupt, I think the information is everywhere. But there is just no commitment. I think the president just wanted to find some form of excuse for arresting these young people. He had no other reason to give rather than joining these people. So I think that's why he might have said what he said.
Richard, what do his statements mean, especially for those who've been arrested? Because it's clearly come out to say, well, there could be those who were innocent and didn't know these are bad elements, these are being sponsored, and they didn't heed to the police's call not to come. And he says these bad manners will be coming through. What does that mean for the cause, first of all, the fight against corruption, which you say the president is the lead crusader?
You see,
did he say the president is the lead crusader?
Yeah, against corruption.
I was going to say that Mildred has decided to hear me in a certain way. Yeah, but you see,
okay.
I credited the president for seeking to position himself in front of the crusade.
He hasn't positioned, he's only seeking?
Yes.
Okay.
He is. And he's doing that because that's what he does. He sees opportunity and works to seize that opportunity to his advantage. In my view, the current opportunity is to appear as a czar against corruption. It's a very difficult image to engineer, because, like I say, this is when all of us we do a lot of information engineering. That's what we do. The political PhD man will tell you that we really do information engineering. Let me tell you, many of the things we say off the microphone, we can't say them here. No, we are engineers. we understand. We understand what it means.
What do you?
So we can, no, it's not that we are talking to a gullible audience. They know.
Yeah.
They know. So we have to be. So him, in my view, he's been trying to position himself as the, what do you call it? Something in armor. There is a way they use that one, in shining armor.
Knight in shining armor.
Against corruption. It's hard. It's extremely difficult to juxtapose this where you have. I always say we have a huge trust deficit of the citizens in the government. It's a huge deficit. So even when you are well-meaning, which I am not convinced at this stage, you still get doubted. So you can imagine to convince the public that way. But his statements are, Mildred, I keep saying here that President Museveni has been eye on the ball, on his seat. That you cannot take it out from him. He has been eye on the ball, day and night, 24/7. So for you to allow a movement of human beings in your compound in the city without you being the leader is the most suicidal thing a leader can do. And you expect President Yoweri Museveni to accept that. Excuse me. Yeah, so that must be stopped. However, in my mind, I believe that he is working beyond his working capability to get all these young people and get them. Let me tell you, there are probably more than 200 young people that have been arrested. These young people, I told you, they are the clean, they are the nice smelling, they are the educated, they are the not starving. You look at their hair and nails, you look at them. It's not your normal
It's not business as usual.
Yes, it's not your normal street shouting.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. That one I can tell you. When you are on this other side.
But when
Mildred,
Yeah.
maybe let me just say, that may also be a failure of these elite youth not communicating with their more estranged compatriots.
No,
I'm
don't call it a failure, Chibaz.
I'm thinking if there was a fusion of these Solomon-looking,
No.
Solomon-looking youth
No, guys,
that came to the streets,
Chibaz,
and the Chapati youth,
They are 2 worlds apart.
maybe
No,
we would
Chibaz,
have
they are
more
not
activity.
worlds apart.
the people, the Chapati people, have already expressed their frustration. And these ones are the ones who have been out
Seated
of
back.
sight.
Thank you.
Once these ones go forward,
Thank
the
you.
other ones are more than ready to join them.
And that's what I was
Because the
saying,
other
Mildred.
guys should have joined.
That no,
But
no,
they were not there.
No, they could not have. Let me tell you.
Why?
Because they have been dealt with previously. And the most important tool has been fear. That's why I tell you that this is different. That this group that has broken fear, the other group is ready to go. And that's what I keep saying, Chibazo, that when you are going to have a real demonstration, no one writes an invitation card. No one gets a timetable. No, guys, just come.
Basta.
I was telling you
involuntary
off air. I know somebody who did not go to work in the morning, in one of those mornings, because he was pleading with his children
Not to go.
not to go on the street. They had got their canvas shoes, they had got their gyms. They were going. They are graduates. We are not talking about. So it's not that they are feeling the vagaries directly, that they are hungry or they don't have data, they have Wi-Fi at home, they have. But I told you, these guys share the frustration with the Chapati guys.
Okay.
Yes, and for you to think that when these 200 go and the 2,000 and the 20,000 will not come is the most dangerous thing you can do, and President Yoweri Museveni will not do that.
All right. Solomon, in your own view, is the president just playing politics over an issue that has actually eaten up society? And he is the person who has continuously talked about it, promised a sword, drawn it a little bit on some people. And like Dr. Waludia said, you make an alarm, people come to save you, and then you don't want to be saved.
But also,
So,
Mildred,
firstly-
when will the president ever take responsibility on issues like corruption? What is his role in overseeing
He
this
always
corruption?
says God will punish the corrupt. He's at least taken responsibility and agreed that there is corruption, even in his own backyard. But Solomon, take it up.
Thank you. Firstly, I think that President Yoweri Museveni, like Dr. Gerard said, is out of reality with the common man. Let me put it in perspective. President Museveni has been in power since 1986. He enjoys all the luxury. We get our taxes, support him. He, drives good cars. He has good farms. He eats very well.
Citizen number one.
He drinks very well. His family is well. His, extended family is good. They open up the way for him. He's living large. The man fought. You've heard people saying, where were you? We fought in the bush. His top people, the ministers, the permanent secretaries, basically there's a growing, is out of touch with reality. And I think that the president needs to come down and listen to young people. I think that the president needs to go back to that 1986 person who would care and listen to young people. And it is disturbing that the president can easily explain away and wash away the struggles of young people who are really tired of what's going on in this country and just easily washes it away as supported by foreign agents. Oh, come on. Everything should be supported by foreign agents. Does the president
He has
think that...
intelligence, he says.
Does the president think that young people do not have what is hurting them that they can easily mobilize and come out and speak up against what they feel is annoying to them? Does it have to be really foreign funded or foreign agent? I think that we are tired of this narrative. Everything foreign agent, funded by foreign agents. Ugandans are suffering. The young people who have been to school, they have graduated. They have gone to school, they have done masters. I have someone who came to my office the other day asking for a job. He has a master's. And I told him, I don't have money, I can only raise 500,000. He said I would work. These are young people who have done everything in their powers. Parents who have actually sold a piece of land to take their children to school. And they're out and they have nothing to do. And they're saying how government is swindling money. How, you know, the speaker is driving a car of 1.2 billion. How those that are trying their best to start up, you know, little businesses are collecting taxes, but these taxes are actually just used by the HLN.
Someone yesterday shared a statistic that I found very worrying, and I'd love him to use it here. It reflects on the youth we are talking about.
And exactly, listen, every single day there are young people going to UAE.
Yeah, sure.
Even when we have done multiple stories about the suffering in the UAE, the Civil Aviation Authority,
they will tell you if I die, I die,
documents the number of people who leave. And just in the first, we have about 84,000 of young people who left. The numbers are clear. Young people, we tell people every day about the suffering in UAE. People have come back, Mildred, you've done those stories. Some people have even cried on air about what happens there. But why are young people leaving? Why are they leaving?
If I die, I die.
They're saying, do you want me to stay here and die? Let me go and try my efforts elsewhere. And the president thinks that's foreign funding? That young people don't have jobs and they see corruption? And you're saying, oh, they are foreign funded. Let me conclude.
He says he actually acknowledges, but it was overtaken by the wrong elements.
And see, that's the thing. That's a problem, that the people also who are feeding the president intel are giving him wrong things. I am looking forward to a day that the president gets to listen to young people, gets to know where they're coming from, that he can come and connect with the nervous system to feel their pain. And I think it's David Mpanga who tweeted recently and said, we will not get a Uganda we want until when we develop that central nervous system, that we can feel each other's pain. Yeah. You know, and it's increasingly getting, we're almost getting there. We're almost getting there. When I see, you know, professionals like Dr. Kabumba Businje, you know, putting out their voices, when I see children who have grown, who now may live like lavish lives, but they have grown up together and they have gone to school with people who are suffering. When they get on board and begin to look at it from a bigger perspective, that this is not only about those people, but it's also all about us, then it will be unstoppable. Okay. And let me conclude with this. The president has said he's passionate about fighting corruption.
He needs to show action.
I disagree. Mr. Museveni has been in power since 1986. He himself has come out to say, you know, despite of the corruption, we have been able to do this. We have had every single year cases of corruption.
What do you want him to do? He's arrested people.
We lose about 10 trillion to corruption.
Yeah, that's
for someone who has been in power from 1986. 1986.
You've known one president yourself.
I'm an 86 baby. 1986, and you're talking about corruption? What did he do the other day? They jailed Jamwa.
Steady progress.
What did he do? Presidential pardon. What are you communicating to Ugandans?
All right, well,
what are you telling Ugandans that you can give a person who was convicted of swindling public resources, and you give him a presidential pardon? On that list, he was #1. What are you communicating to Ugandans? What are you communicating to Ugandans when the IGG comes to say, we'll do a lifestyle audit, and then you say, be careful with lifestyle? Are you kidding me? Are you really serious?
So you disagree that the president is actually fighting against corruption?
I think that the president needs to really be serious about this thing. Listen, at the State of the Nation address where the president was saying about corruption, the president watered down the corruption conversation to say that he can forgive the mistake makers, but he will not forgive people who are foreign funded by agents. I mean that
creates a window for some people to
sure. Amnesty.
The president has opportunity. Because he will tell you the court system is slow, it is delaying him, it is what. But executive action, he can fire them, he can throw them out of government, he can. But the president is also a politician. He is looking at the political cost. And he, like the chief executive of the other arm that Baguma was talking about, that said, if these people steal and bring to you, I mean...
And you know what Anita Mong said?
I
will go back and tell the president. On that same platform, he said, but what is wrong when he steals and shares with you? I will go and tell His Excellence.
The president is drawing out his sword. How it works
is a blunt sword.
Yeah, he's drawing out his blood sword. How it works is subject to how everyone interprets it differently. But we need to take a short break. But the reality of it is...
So I decided to carry my own, and the others can do it.
For
water.
me, it was
Mr.
even very
Producer,
clear
just
that
save
they
me.
will
Let's
not
take a
give me
break
coffee.
and get back. Welcome back, and thank you so much for keeping it NBS Television. It's the Morning Breeze, your most authoritative morning current affairs show. And it's a media roundtable, still making sense of the stories that have made headlines. But of course, it's been a March to Parliament week, so to say. And we continue to delve deeper into that. I still do have Mr. Solomon Seranja, Peter Chibazo, Dr. Gerald Waluria, and definitely Mr. Richard Baguma. But as we get into our very final segment, two particular things. And Richard, I'll start with you this time. Parliament now is up in arms. I remember, I think it was Honorable Jonathan Odur or someone who said he was walking back in his constituency and he was called Owech Tibwa. And he thought it was a praise name until he realized it meant a thief. Baby Tibwa Babi. That is exactly what he said. But also, we continue to see members agitating.
The word Tibwa meant that he actually understood it.
He said he thought it was a praise. It was a praise. Do you think it's a tall order to have such a conversation on the floor of Parliament? And then also, how best can government be able to take in this growing dissent, this growing uproar against the state of corruption?
There's nothing about government. Don't. You people disturb me. You say, how will President Museveni? Which government?
I don't get that.
Mildred, say that again.
Are you here? Yes.
It is important for you to say it.
People keep going around, they say government. You know. How will President Museveni
just say President Museveni
present himself at the head of the anti-corruption movement and stay there? Because that's what guarantees his seat.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm, in my mind, I have no doubt this is what is preoccupying him now. The other part is this thing, Parliament. The guns have been pointed at Anita Among Magogo. Annette. Narongo. Anita has been a consequential hand in the things that parliamentarians do. She has been. First, as Anita, she must calm down. But two, as the institution of Parliament, it must also calm down.
How do you mean?
So, the discussion about corruption in Parliament must go on.
Okay.
Where does a petitioner get money to manage all his travels up country to look for signatures? Where does he get the money from?
They asked for a bus.
He's putting his money. That gentleman is putting his own money.
Theodore Sechikubo.
He's putting his own
My
money
friend.
to do that. So, Parliament must calm down.
I was waiting for Baguma to say nga.
Must calm down and do the bidding of the executive. And President Museveni will do everything to put himself as the lead fighter against corruption. If he doesn't achieve that, and I already say, a few of my friends, for them, if they are not leading something, then it is wrong. Yeah, and that is one of those. I have a couple of people, others are my friends. If they are not leading something, it is wrong. He is one of those. What I think, the recognition that I think that is there, is that you cannot stop the frustration. You cannot stop the frustration from expressing itself. No, you can't. The frustration has grown over decades. You cannot stop it from explaining. I was with the Honorable Mao and the team they were teasing me about in New York not very many days ago. This is how...
He was PA to the Prime Minister.
This is how... No way. This is how Mao describes it. That there is a jam. There is a jam in the governance road in this country. That comes with impunity, and it is coupled with greed, it is coupled with abuse, it is coupled. Now, human beings in a jam eventually get tired. The hot sun, their fuel is coming out, the fumes, they eventually get tired and get out of the vehicles and come to check what is creating the clogging. Now they are coming out.
Then you have a road rage.
And you don't know where that will go.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Thank you. Dr. Gerald, the Parliament is now coming up to say, I think we need to talk about this. The not congregation, I'm thinking church now, but the public has asked, the public has continuously asked, and they seem to just be covering up the entire conversation coming through. And also President Museveni and the fight against corruption, how real can it get to satisfy the masses that are agitated?
I think for Parliament, it is still a very complicated issue. You can compare it to trying to hit a snake that is in a cooking pot. The people who are presiding over Parliament...
Well, you can smoke it out.
Now you have to be creative.
Yeah.
So the people who are presiding over Parliament are one of those who are being accused and the leading of those who are accused. So it is very difficult for them to preside over a debate that is going to include their names. That's why probably they might have wanted to suspend Parliament for a week to see that the temperatures calm down a bit. But it is still possible that the issue of corruption can openly be debated. And until there is action on the people who are accused of corruption, there is not going to be any satisfaction. And like Baguma has said, in the language of these Vibanda, they say katandika butandisi. The protests against corruption and bad governance is just starting. I think we are going to see even more serious sins arising out of the lack of responsibility on the side of government to take action against acts such as corruption.
Okay, thank you very much. Solomon,
Yeah.
the Parliament is on the spotlight. Richard said they were set up, definitely. But I would want to believe that the reason why Parliament would be an easy target is because we believe this should be people's representatives. We go through a democracy to elect them to represent our views. But it doesn't seem to be coming through the conversation. And then the president also seems to suggest totally different means of being able to express this discontent. How best?
Yeah. You know, I want to go back to Peter Chivazo's earlier opening statement that he wants to give the president a benefit of doubt, that he really doesn't like corruption. So if you don't want corruption, but corruption continues to exist...
Until you're told that he actually talks to Pinetti personally.
But let me just use Peter Chivazo's word, that if the president, if we had to give him a benefit of doubt to say he hates corruption, and corruption continues to happen, can we conclusively say that the president has been captured?
By the corrupt?
By who?
The general of the resistance.
He is in charge.
001.
Listen, the president hates corruption.
Yes.
His government loses 10 trillion shillings annually, according to the IGG.
And he drew out a sword.
And he says he's
A
been
blunt
here
one.
from 1986. Every year we're crying about corruption. He wants to do something, but he can't. Can we therefore conclusively say that the president
has said, even at his own place, even at his own state house, where people literally have to pay others to have him met, he said he has done arrests.
So can we say the Sabalwani has been captured?
Do you
by
ever
the corrupt?
envisage that?
That's what I'm saying. Because you see, these days I'm a philosopher. I'm doing my PhD. So we draw conclusions from facts.
I envy you, boy.
So Dr. Gerard there knows. One, let's go with hypothesis. The first one is Museveni doesn't like corruption. The second one is Museveni has a corrupt government.
Peter, you need to switch seats so Dr. Gerald can draw closer. We're talking
is
about scholars.
The president must do something about it.
Yeah.
But with all these facts, the Museveni I know, if he wants something to be done, he will do it. Yoweri, son of Kaguta.
Like he is arresting people now.
General of the resistance movement. The president of Uganda. Commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The Museveni I know. If he wants to do something, he will do it.
So he hasn't wanted.
The president has been captured by the corrupt. And I think until he frees himself from the chains that have bounding him right now, he will not do. He's in that state of...
I was waiting for you to put hands on him to free the...
Until when the president is free, because he has been bound. He has been chained. The president needs to break free. He is captured by the corrupt. And because what do you do? Because the people who are corrupt are it's Anita Among who I don't know, allegations that he's corrupt. But the people who are... The IGG says he has presented these things before the president with evidence. But she also says that they all end up at the president's table. They all run to the president. And the president says, what do you want now me to do? What do you want me to do? Because the IGG says, Your Excellency, here is evidence.
And the speaker confirmed when she said she will plead the...
And then, but you see, here is the evidence.
When your children do wrong, you want to
And then you know what he does? Because he's captured, he comes... When he's captured, he comes on the State of the Nation and says, those ones made mistakes.
I can pardon them.
Let's see. They made mistakes. Otherwise, who will we work with? You're captured. His Excellency needs to free himself out of this capture if he's serious about fighting corruption.
All right, thank you very much, Solomon. I don't know what Peter thinks about that. I know, he is. I don't get it. Peter, over to you. And Parliament is also now saying, we need to talk about this. We need to discuss it. We're the center. We are all being called corrupt. Will it save?
The Age of an Urban Gorilla is a book written by David Kirschlen. Actually, he writes several of them around the Middle East. The latest one that I've read is called The Ledger. It talks about accountability for how they failed in Afghanistan. But in the age of the urban gorilla, he says, we are out of that age where you had a gorilla go to Luweero, go to the bushes. We are away from Samora Machel. We are away from Yoweri Museveni. We are into the streets. And Yoweri Museveni that you're talking about is very aware of the age of the urban gorilla and knows the consequences. He's seen Khartoum, he's seen Cairo, he's seen Nairobi now, he's seeing Bangladesh. And Yoweri Museveni's prime venture is to keep power. If corruption delivers power, if that is the rent you pay to stay at plot 1 in Samizi, so be it. If that is the rent, General Yoweri Museveni of the resistance that he's talking about will pay the rent. He spent money. When people talk about Parliament, Rebecca Litwala Kadaga, Alia Sekandi, huffed and puffed in Parliament, created some discomforts. And a few of my friends, Kasule Lumumba, now the Minister of Energy, Nankabirwa, and the others, became bullion vans. Their offices literally had bullion vans. There is a time they were distributing money here at Katikati. A journalist that I know that may be seated in this studio was smuggled in to go and observe
Money observer.
the distribution, put in a corner under a table to see the distribution, and people were getting briquettes. Mildred, have you seen money distributed in briquettes? Red pepper used to say it is weighed in kilos.
Yeah.
People were getting briquettes of money. Pap, kamata, iyo ni yako, iyo ni yako. Until one of them got, and they were not supposed to get. And the one that was distributing was on phone. When they turned, they say, ah, that baguma, in my language, said, oyo baguma taina kufuno, oyo mujeko. And the man's money was withdrawn. That was rent. They were paying for changing of laws in Parliament. They were paying for.
And where was the money coming from?
I don't know. I don't know. It could have come in pallets on
Maybe foreign agents?
It could have come in pallets on the Bank of Uganda charter.
Okay.
But right now, who is the chief whip?
Dennis,
Obua.
David Hamson Obua. Dennis Hamson Obua.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ham Obua doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to deliver briquettes of money. Who is doing the bidding?
Triple A.
Anita Among is invaluable in that house. She has taken the pressure off the general of the resistance.
How do you dismiss such a person?
So, how do you shove Anita away when she's helping you with the rent to stay in plot 1?
So you're actually agreeing with, you're confirming Solomon's idea that the president is captured? He can't do anything?
No. Do you see?
Shortly
This one asked about capturable. If you say he's captured, if you say he's captured by his desire to permanently, until death do part, stay on Samizi, plot 1, then he's captured. Beyond that, thank you very much. Any of your commanders can be sacrificed for the larger good of the battle. And so if the war of staying on plot 1 in Samizi is to sacrifice some of the commanders, they will be.
It is, I think, Bishop Dietmar that is quoted by Arthur Koestler. He says, when the existence of the church
is
threatened, all means are sanctified. Murder, coercion, killing.
Yes.
Because the end
justifies the means.
The church is released from the shackles of morality.
Dr. Gerald, you had a statement to make on the capture before we get to close this off.
Is the president captured?
The president captured. I think
no, he's paying rent.
Shortly, I think before they read the budget, the president said something to the effect of what Chibazo was saying, how the head of the judiciary and parliament have harmoniously worked together with the executive, non-antagonistic. So the price that comes with this harmonious existence, rather than the checks and balance that are envisaged in the 3 arms of government, is these transactions that you are seeing now.
I have to end my panel. Dumbfounded at that, but thank you. No, you need to. You still need to go to the field.
But there's evidence.
Go and do the data collection.
There's evidence already.
Thank you very much, Solomon Seranja, Peter Chibazo, Dr. Gerald Baludia, and thank you, Richard Baguma, and to you, our viewer, for paying time to listen to us. That's all we had time for on the Morning Breeze Media Roundtable. I'm Mildred. So I say good morning. God bless you.
Thank you.